Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Please make yourself at home. Have a sit down and let's listen to Chapter 14 of Star Wars I, Jedi by Michael Stackpole. Read for you by DK. That's me. Do you like these extended pauses? Running down the hallway toward Gantoris' room, I caught a whiff of the poisonously sweet scent I'd smelled a couple of times before during my days with Corsac. I didn't want to look inside the room because I knew what I would see. The knot of students at the doorway shielded me from the sight, but did nothing to block the scent. I heard Master Skywalker say, "Beware the dark side." Then, a greasy thread of smoke twisted through the apprentices, driving them apart. Several turned away and stumbled down the corridor with hands over their mouths. Streen and Cam Solusar hung on either side of the doorway, ashen-faced and staring inside. I slipped between them, raising the neck of my tunic to cover my nose. They turned away, leaving me alone with Luke and what was left of Gantoris. Gantoris' body lay near the far wall of his stone chamber. At least I assumed it was Gantoris because it did not much look like him. He had been burned to death. Carbonized flesh had crumbled to ash at some points, revealing blackened bone. The heat had contracted his muscles, arching his spine and pulling his head back. His mouth remained open in a wordless scream. Smoke still rose from the charred remnants of his Jedi robes, and his lightsaber had rolled over to rest against the wall itself. Luke Skywalker stood over him, staring down at his blackened remains. "What happened here? Did he attack you again?" Luke turned to look at me with haunted, red-rimmed eyes, and I could tell this wasn't the first time he'd seen a body in this condition. "Do you think I did this?" The pain in his voice knifed right through me. "I wasn't accusing you. I just want to know what happened." I crouched by the body. "Occupational hazard. Who found him?" Dorsk 81 came for me, so I suppose he did. The others gathered after we got here. I nodded. "I'll want to talk to them." Luke blinked away some of the shock in his eyes. "You're going to investigate the situation?" My head came up. "Shouldn't I?" The Jedi Master hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, of course you should. We need to know what happened here." "Right." I pointed toward the body and circled my finger around the general area. "I can give you some basics right now. The lack of a consistent pattern of charring, as well as the absence of a chemical scent, suggests no accelerant was used. In other words, no one poured something flammable over him and turned him into a torch." Luke winced at that description. "I see. Take a look at the fingers and ears. Badly burned." "Right, but they're not gone. Bodies lit on fire tend to have those little bits burn off quickly, and the fact that he's still got clothes on him, albeit badly charred." I let my voice trail off because the conclusion I was being led toward ran counter to my previous experience. "It almost seems as if he was burned from the inside out. That would require an incredible amount of energy, a lightning strike or lots of microwaves. We don't have either here." "Yes, but he had such energy." Luke's voice dropped to a whisper. "His anger." "You think he was consumed by his anger?" "I do. I think he used it to unleash dark side forces he could not control. Had you not been able to shunt aside the energies you absorbed last evening in the grotto, you too might have been burned up by them." I reached out a hand toward the lightsaber, but I could feel no heat from it, nor see any signs that it had been damaged by the fire. I'd like to get a full laboratory workup on the lightsaber. Fingerprints, tissue residue, matches, the works, both inside and out. Luke shook his head. "You will find that only Gantoris and I have touched that lightsaber." "How do you know?" "I know." Luke raised his hands. "If you open yourself to this room, you can feel the residue of Gantoris' last moments. There's much pain and much anger, as well as doubt and outrage. The pain is physical, of course, and mental. Feels as if he was tortured before he died." I stood again. Gantoris' body lay between us like a wall. Who would have done that to him? Luke shook his head. "None of you. Shock and surprise and horror radiates off everyone else very openly. They were not involved." "And me?" Some surprise, certainly, but also a determination to solve this puzzle. Luke regarded me through half-lidded eyes. If you were to kill him, you would have goaded him into a duel, or used an illusion to make him have a fatal accident. You wouldn't have been this clumsy, or left this sort of evidence. You would have been subtle. Thanks, I think? I folded my arms across my chest. So if we didn't do it, who did? I don't know. Luke's face darkened. Gantoris did have premonitions of disaster, however. Even when I first met him, he wondered if I were the dark man who would bring him to ruin. He said, if I go with you, I'm lost. At the time, I thought he was just afraid of what would happen to his people if he left them. Then, last evening, as he was leaving the grotto, he told me that I was not the dark man. No, the dark man is Liam Neeson. I chewed my lower lip for a moment. So, Gantoris positively identified his dark man. You told me that Gantoris also mentioned to you that you were not the only teacher of the Jedi way. I don't think it's a stretch to think this dark man might be the other instructor. The fact that you can't feel this other individual here is not a good sign. He cannot remain hidden forever. I don't think he intends to. What do you mean? I glanced down at Gantoris' body. You said that if I wanted to kill Gantoris, I'd have been subtle. This death is anything but subtle. We have someone dead by means that are impossible, and he was killed right here in the heart of the Academy. You can see by that one diagonal cut on the wall there that Gantoris apparently tried to strike his attacker, but that did no good. In my time with Corsac, I helped track a sociopathic killer or two. Leaving a body out in the open like this was a taunt. It was the killer saying that he's smarter than we are, more powerful and more cunning. Gantoris tried to kill him with a lightsaber and failed. That means the rest of us have little chance of hurting him. He's challenging us, and challenging you. He obviously won one of your students over to the dark side, then left him here like a discarded plaything to show his contempt for you. Luke hugged his arms around himself. I think he may have been even more direct. I shook my head. I'm not tracking here. Tonight, I had a nightmare. My father tried to explain to me how it was Obi-Wan's fault that he had been corrupted by his studies of Sith material. What he told me seemed to make sense for the most part, but then he invited me to follow him down that path, which I knew my father would never do. I accused him of not being my father. The image then shifted into that of a shadow that swallowed everything. At that point, R2 awakened me, so I don't know what else would have happened. He became a shadow. I shivered. Gantoris' dark man? Obi-Wan suggested that there was no such thing as a coincidence. I would have to suppose that all this is related. Luke's expression hardened. I have to decide very carefully how to proceed from here. If you will, let me suggest two things. Go ahead. First, this dark man apparently managed to convince Gantoris that he could offer him things you could not or would not. Gantoris' knowledge of and control of the Force was insufficient to allow him to avoid such seductive ideas. I think you need to use the holocron as a way to instill in us a sense of history and purpose for what we're doing, so we have even more incentive to help rebuild the Jedi. And avoid the easy solutions offered by the dark side. Exactly. The Jedi Master thought for a moment, then nodded. And the other thing? In this dream, you said you saw the Massassi and the pyramids the way they were millennia ago. I think we might want to do some investigating to see what we can learn about Yavin 4 and the temples. The holocron might well be able to give us information. If we can put a face and name to this dark man, or figure out what he's after here, we'll have a better chance of stopping him. Both plans seem to make sense. Luke smiled at me grimly. I shall work on the first. Tion is spending a lot of time pulling legends from the holocron, so she can help me. With your background as an investigator, you should handle the gathering of information about our dark man. I'll build a profile on him. If we can figure out what he wants and how he thinks, we have him. Good. Luke glanced back down at Gantoris' body, then up at me. If the New Republic is to thrive, we can't allow the Jedi to be destroyed. There was no returning to sleep that night, so I made my way to the small library where we studied the Jedi holocron. I really didn't feel up to beginning any investigation at the moment, but playing around with the holocron and learning how it worked seemed to be something I could handle. The greenish glow making its way into the corridor told me someone else was using the device, and my curiosity carried me right into the room. There, Bathed in the green glow from Bodo Bas sat Tion. She looked long and lean and lovely, with the greenish tint the light gave her hair looking far better on her than it ever did on me. She would have been unarguably gorgeous, except that her hands covered her face, and her shoulders shook with sobs. Bodo Bas's image reached a clawed limb toward her. For a Jedi, there is no emotion. There is only peace. Tion looked up, her face wet with tears. It was more horrible than you could imagine. The Jedi simulacrum bobbled his head. But are the tears for your fallen comrade, or for you? What? Shock rode through her voice. She swiped at her tears, pointed a finger at the hologram, and caught sight of me in the corner of her eye. My presence cut off whatever she would have said to him. Instead of replying, she bowed her head toward me and shivered. How could anyone do that to Gantoris? I nodded toward Bodo Bas, then knelt by Tion's side. I gathered her into my arms and held her, letting her tears stain my emerald tunic. She clung to me fiercely at first, burying her head against my neck. I stroked her hair and resisted the impulse to kiss the crown of her head. Take it easy, Tion. What happened to Gantoris was hideous, but it's not going to happen to anyone else. Bodo Bas's inhuman gaze caught and held my own. You speak of certainties, Jedi, where there are many unknowns. I quoted back a piece of the Jedi Code. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Yes, the gatekeeper hissed. Do you have a question for me? One moment. I eased my hands down onto Tion's shoulders and pulled back away from her a bit. Can you help me with the holocron? You know more about it than I do. She sniffed and wiped tears away with delicately long fingers. How can you be so calm after what you've seen? For just a second, I wasn't holding her in my arms, but holding my father's lifeless body. The past prepares us for the present. I hate to say it, but I've seen other bodies that were just as horrible. What I saw in Gantoris' room was awful. It scares me too, but I'm doing my best to keep things under control. Tion sniffed again and sat back against the cold stone wall of a small room. She folded her arms across her chest and stared forward at the base of the pedestal on which the holocron rested. You must think me weak. Not at all. Don't lie. You had to rescue me last night, and now you find me here like this. She looked at me accusingly. How you keep your contempt for me hidden, I don't know. You can believe it's hidden, or you can believe it doesn't exist. I forced myself to remain calm. The second choice is right. She reached out to me, and I took her hand in mine. Tion closed her eyes, and I could feel her consciousness drifting toward me. The touch of her mind was but a faint whisper of what I'd felt from Luke, yet she managed to infuse herself into my surface thoughts. I consciously left them open to her, and beneath them hardened the layer that was Kieran Halcyon. Even though I tried to keep her away from plunging deeper, she managed to twist down through my thoughts about her and stab deep into my heart. She jerked back sharply, breaking our contact, and stared at me with wild, wide eyes. You've been hurt. Very hurt. I shrugged. I've survived. But there's so much of you that is hidden. She blinked at me. Master Skywalker has told us his father was Darth Vader. What secrets could you have that would be more dangerous than that to share? Not more dangerous, just more boring. They would distract you. Training here is hard enough without distractions. Tion smiled, and it felt good to see animation return to her face. They might distract others, but not me. I plan to sing of the exploits of the Jedi, so I need to know about Kieran Halcyon. Before I could deny I was worth knowing about, Bodo Bas spoke. Kieran Halcyon was a famed Corellian Jedi. He successfully put an end to the Solonian Afarathu sect and its marauding within the Corellian system. As he spoke, the holocron presented an image of a man built more solidly than I was, but who wore the same sort of mustache and goatee I had chosen to grow. His long, dark hair had been gathered back into a loose tail, and the lightsaber he held had a silver blade. A smile unconsciously rose to my lips. Luke said Kieran Halcyon was the name of one of my ancestors. The Afarathu problem had taken place 4 centuries back, and had all but been forgotten until Imperial officials used the specter of it to incite xenophobia among the human populations in the Corellia system. Fortunately for the Solonians, they had not been warlike for so long. Few of us saw them as a true threat. Tion's eyes sparkled with absolute delight. Is that your secret? Are you this Kieran Halcyon come back to us? I don't think even carbonite freezing would have preserved me for that long. I laughed gently. I was named for him. I have a lot to live up to. Well, we can learn all about him if you want. I can even compose a ballad about him. I winced. Might put some of the others off, although I would love to learn more about him. Actually, what I had hoped to study through the holocron was any information it had about this world and the Massassi. Will you help me with that? Gladly. Her hair shimmered with green highlights as she nodded. It'll be my pleasure, and will be a way to repay you for saving me in the grotto. You don't need to repay me for that. Extending my right hand, I gave her left shoulder a squeeze. And I want you to know, I don't think you're weak. Your nature is to be far more emotionally open and receptive than I am. This is why you have a clearer access to the Force than I do. It may make it difficult for you to concentrate sometimes, but it's easier to learn to concentrate than it is to learn to open up. I would hate to think you're right, Kieran, because I would hate to think you could not open up about your emotions. Her friendly smile warmed me. You have friends here with whom you can be open. You can trust us as we trust you. I know. I gave her a brave smile. But I also knew I could not share my true identity with her or anyone else. Luke Skywalker, in suggesting I adopt another name, was right to think I might be a distraction to the others. He also had another purpose, one rooted in his understanding of fighter pilots and Corellians. By having me be someone else, he made it unnecessary for me to be the legend I had become. As much as I had seen my self-conception insulating me from the Force, Luke had seen it even more, and he had taken steps to solve the problem before I even realized I had it. I nodded to Tion. Believe me, when I can open up, you'll be the first to know. If there is to be a ballad of this Kieran Halcyon, I want you to compose it and sing it. Gladly, Kieran. She lifted her head toward Bodo Baas. Now let's see what we can find out about this world and our predecessors here. This planet has as many secrets as you do, if not more, and I have the feeling puzzling them out will provide a basis for a very important ballad. End of chapter 14. You kidding me? That was heckin' grim. Old Gantoris fell on the floor. Old Gantoris lives no more. That's my ballad that I compose. Isn't that fun? There's Jedi ballads. Interesting. But who could have done this to Gantoris? What happened? I wonder if we'll ever find out. Only way to know for sure is to keep reading. So tune in next time for Chapter 15 of iJedi, read for you by DK, that's me. Thanks for listening. As always, I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.